bikes, cars, feet.
These are the things that move us across the road. Each type of transportation has a set of rules to follow. But what happens when one group does not comply?
The Port of Brownsville. It currently exists as a harbor that's used for commerce between the United States and Mexico.
And the Port of Brownsville will soon be home to an LNG pipeline. The project, which is set to begin in the near future, has caused a major divide among the RGV community. So no matter what form of transportation you use, remember to share the road
And follow traffic laws.
Reporting for UTRGV TV, I'm Nathaniel Puente. And how exactly can we help? Well, you can start by switching to metal straws to replace plastic, carpooling to reduce pollution, and of course, recycle. The faces you see on this table are victims of domestic violence, and each year over 12 million men and women will suffer from domestic abuse. The message of this year's Domestic Violence Forum and Vigil is to stop the cover-up and speak out. Within those counties are precincts and places that divide cities in discrete ways. But what is the purpose of a precinct, and what type of power do the officials in charge of them hold? It's the fourth most points scored in program history. Technically, it's the most points ever scored by a UTRGV women's basketball team, which is good because records, they're meant to be broken. Here's something that sounds like a broken record. Volleyball has had a tough stretch this season, but they have one final game in the regular season against Chicago State, which if they win it, they'll be seeded 4th in the WAC tournament. It's a tough way to soccer to close out their year, but just as they end their season, another one begins. Basketball is back, and men's basketball got things started in South Dakota.
Hurricane season is in its stride. Tropical storms, flooding, and hurricanes are a threat to everyone living on the coast. Although the deadly Hurricane Dorian and Tropical Storm Ferdinand spared the RGV, the next cyclone might not, and UTRGV must have procedures in place for such an event.
Inclement weather is something we take very seriously.
Housing coordinator Sergio Martinez tells us the preparation that goes into keeping residents safe during an emergency.
So what we typically do on our end for housing, first off, is make sure we identify which students, in case of inclement weather, or in this case, a hurricane, would need housing and transportation to an off-site location.
The housing department works diligently to ensure the safety of residents on campus. They coordinate with the emergency preparedness department to determine the best scenario for everyone involved.
Safety is our top priority. We want to make sure all our students are comfortable and safe.
Residents at the village apartments need to be prepared when flooding or other disasters hit.
We have had some serious flooding issues, but for the most part, once the sandbags are there, nothing really comes into the apartments themselves.
My advice to our residents would be to be aware of our protocols so they're not worried in times of an emergency, as well as put valuable items in a safe place.
Although natural disasters can be uncertain and scary, the Housing Department and Office of Emergency Preparedness have students' best interest in mind. Reporting for UTRGV TV from Edinburgh, I'm Nathaniel Puente.
A social media post warning of a terroristic threat at UTRGV sparked concern among students. However, Chief of Police Raul Munguia says that it's a case of inaccurate information.
Social media and the post on there, they're not 100% accurate.
There's a guy making terrorist threats against the campus and is heavily armed. These are the words students saw on social media alarming them of possible threats at UTRGV. But where did this accusation come from?
We actually had a report of a dating violence incident that had occurred, and it was a UTRGV student, basically in an abusive relationship with a non-student. That actually produced a social media post that has been lingering, and some of the student body, they're picking up on this post that occurred last week, and it's not dated, it's not time-stamped or anything, so they're taking it as it's happening right now, which it's not. We never had a threat to begin with against the campus community. This was just a dating violence issue between two people.
To assure students that the threat is not real, UTRGV PD sent out an email to students to clarify the case. Social media posts often share misinformation.
We see students here walking around with their cell phones in hand and texting, going back and forth, and they take that as the gospel when oftentimes there'll be some inaccuracies in it.
Chief Munguia says that students should take information on social media posts with a grain of salt. If there are any emergencies at UTRGV, the police department will make sure to get that information out to students. Reporting from Edinburgh for UTRGV TV, I'm Nathaniel Puente.
There's always something in front of you to challenge you.
Motivation.
The question you have to ask yourself.
Confidence.
What is it that I want to achieve in life? And I turned my father
And football.
One day I want to play football. And I want to play for the Dallas Cowboys.
These are the things Pro Football Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith preached during his visit to UTRGV for this semester's version of the Distinguished Speaker Series.
And a packed house gathered at the Performing Arts Complex to watch the former Dallas Cowboy give his speech of perseverance.
You know, they always told him he was too small, he couldn't do it. He proved them wrong.
Sports fans of all kind were excited to see the NFL's all-time leading rusher travel to Edinburgh. As soon as Smith entered the room, the raucous crowd erupted in jubilation. Smith then delivered a speech with an emphasis on motivation, accepting change, and believing in yourself.
Attack whatever's in front of you that's resisting you from getting to where you're trying to go.
Smith later told us why he enjoys giving these speeches.
I think it empowers them to go out and try to do things that they might not be thinking about.
And of course, we talked football.
Happy Cowboy years was that we built it all together. And no one inherited anything because we started from the bottom.
Much like Smith carried his teams to 3 Super Bowl victories, he carries this message to everybody.
It is believe in yourself, keep pushing hard, keep working hard, and seek wisdom whenever you can.
Reporting for UTRGV TV from Edinburgh, I'm Nathaniel Puente.
Hey, thanks, Kim. Sharing is great. To keep that spirit going, we have a whole feast of games to go over in this week's UTRGV Sports Highlights. We start with women's soccer, who are wrapping up their season at the WAC tournament. Seattle, Washington hosts the WAC tournament, and UTRGV enters the big dance as the 5th seed. They opened the tournament against 4th-seeded CSU Bakersfield. The Roadrunners drew first blood with a goal from Esther Toth after a nice cross from Daria Tatum. The Vaqueros would answer back with an Emily Zapata goal. Both teams stayed locked at 1 and finished out the overtime periods without finding another goal. No draws in the playoffs. It's time for the most exciting part of soccer, penalty kicks. Senior Kinga Shemek defended the net for UTRGV, while Andrea Neves did it for the Roadrunners. The schools missed the first 5 shootout attempts thanks to some great goalkeeping, but UTRGV broke through thanks to Alina Sapala and Sarah Bonney to win this one with 2 penalty kicks. After that dramatic win, UTRGV took on the top-seeded Seattle U Redhawks. Now this game is in Seattle. This is their turf. Still, the Vaqueros held their opponent out of the net for the first 76 minutes, but the powerful Redhawk offense broke through with Lauren Brown. Seattle U followed this win with a victory in the WAC finals to win the tournament. And hey, congrats to Seattle. Now while one WAC tournament wrapped up, another is set to begin. UTRGV came into the weekend ranked 7th place in the WAC standings, and there are 7 teams that make it into the men's soccer WAC tournament. So all UTRGV had to do to make it into the tournament was defeat the last place Incarnate Word Cardinals. Should be easy, right? Well, that's why they play the game. We head out to the football pitch, or should I say the gridiron. Either way, they're playing some kind of football here. The Cardinals have only won 1 conference game this year. Not a big challenge here. Wait, there's a nice move from Carol Wensgrick to snag the open net goal. Well, no big deal. That's only Incarnate Word's 5th goal of conference play. There's no way they'll score another goal. This one from Jonathan Diaz. It's the most goals the Cardinals have scored in a game since August, as they close out this one, winning 2-0. It's a tough way to soccer to close out their year, but just as they end their season, another one begins. Basketball is back, and men's basketball got things started in South Dakota. UTRGV's 2019 campaign tipped off in South Dakota, and right away the Jackrabbits ran away with a big lead. South Dakota's Douglas Wilson led the game with 24 points on the night. Ultimately, UTRGV would fall in this one though, 70-57. A tough loss there, but the women's team had a chance to defend the home court. They were taking on Texas Southern, and hey, both teams have the shape of Texas in their logo, and you don't want to mess with us. South Texas meets Texas Southern at the UTRGV Fieldhouse. The Vaqueros got up 3-2 thanks to Megan Johnson knocking down a 3-pointer, but that was the last time UTRGV led as Texas Southern dominated the night. Siani Courier led both teams with 26 points on the night. In the end, Texas Southern won this one 71-44. The Vaqueros got another chance at home though. This time they took on Minot State. Early on, this looked like a close match. The Beavers led after the first quarter 22-20, but UTRGV went on an impressive run the rest of the way to pick up the win. The Vaqueros outstole Minot State 16-4 as they ran away with this one 75-56. So women's basketball starts off their season 1-1. Men's basketball has their next match tonight. They're playing Howard Payne in their home opener, so that should be exciting. So that's going to be your UTRGV TV sports highlights for this week. Let's see what's next. 2019 has been a big year for UTRGV. Chick-fil-A started serving ice cream. UTRGV Student Media won the Director's Trophy at the Texas Intercollegiate Press Association back in March, thanks to people like yours truly and a couple other student media legends. And UTRGV men's soccer started receiving votes to be a top 25 school in the NCAA. Let's see how they'd handle the pressure against Utah Valley. It was a battle of the valleys as UTRGV hosted Utah Valley for a match on the pitch. The Wolverines struck first with a diving head goal from Arian Caprio. And wow, that's what I call using your head. The Vaqueros evened the mark late in the first half thanks to Kyle Edwards scoring on a penalty kick. Remember his name because he'll show up a little later. Utah Valley put the game-winning goal on the board in the second half to win this one 2-1. UTRGV's next challenge came against the Air Force Academy Falcons. Let's see who flew the highest. The Vaqueros hosted the Falcons in a WAC showdown that saw the home team take the lead in the second half. Kyle Edwards, remember who I told you to remember? He connected on not one but two goals late in the game as UTRGV would fly on their way like an eagle to a 2-0 win.
Here's what Coach Leese had to say after the win.
So I thought the boys were very intelligent today in the way they played. They took their moments. Two fantastic goals from Kyle Edwards, and I think they deserved the win.
Meanwhile, women's soccer was over in Kansas City, Missouri, to take on the UMKC Roos. The conference opener saw each team trade goals in the first half, courtesy of Shantatius Knox for the Vaqueros and Emma Wilson of the Roos. If you thought those early goals would lead to a high-scoring game, well, you're wrong. One goal was all each team decided to put up as the game ended in a 1-1 draw. It's like the old saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. And since that's not really possible, they just decided to tie each other. The team came home to face Grand Canyon on Sunday, and this time one goal was all that was needed for the win. Getting that goal, Catherine Stokely in the 26th minute. UTRGV would hold on for the 1-0 win. Switching gears now, we move to a sport where energy is always high. Now, volleyball has had a bit of a subpar season this year compared to years past, but a couple of road conference matchups could be just what this team needs to change the momentum. Volleyball opened the weekend up against New Mexico State. The first set was an intense battle between the two schools, and it took 28 points to win the thing. New Mexico took the set and all of the momentum as they ended up winning this one in a 3-set sweep. The next game came against California Baptist. This game saw back-and-forth action between each team. UTRGV took the first two sets to put them in prime position for a sweep, but California Baptist came from behind to win the next two sets to set up a dramatic finish. The fifth set was just as competitive, but it was the Vaqueros taking the win of a Victoire Nama kill. Volleyball is now 2-2 in conference play, and they come home this week for a couple of conference matchups. So much like Nama killed that last game, we're going to kill this sportscast. Let's see those police reports.